Now, at one stage, as many as 8 candidates, we think, had their hats in the ring for the UKIP leadership contest. But this morning, the number still standing fell to just 3 because Peter Whittle, he's a London Assembly member for UKIP, he pulled out, announcing he's backing Paul Nuttall instead. As well as Mr Nuttall, the remaining candidates are John Rhys-Evans, who was UKIP's candidate for Cardiff South at the last general election, and Suzanne Evans, a former deputy chairman of the party. Now, we're going to speak to her in just a moment. But first, here is what the major UKIP donor, Aaron Banks, had to say about the state of the party earlier this week.
It is a bit of a crisis, isn't it? I mean, the whole reason of UKIP was to get the Brexit referendum. We won it. I think UKIP has to define what it is, but make no mistake, the other parties, well, Labour in particular, are in big trouble. And it's really a question whether UKIP can redefine what it stands for and change itself.
Can UKIP do that without Nigel Farage?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And we'll have to wait and see who gets elected. At the moment, it's in a hell of a mess. There's no sugarcoating that.
And Suzanne Evans is here. Welcome back to the programme. Before we come on to your leadership bid for UKIP, you've quoted as saying that the High Court judges who ruled against the government over the Brexit issue should be sacked. What bit of the independence of the judiciary don't you understand?
I absolutely understand independence of judiciary. Let me make my comments very clear. I think it's one of those things on Twitter when you only have 140 characters. I've been concerned for quite a while that the judiciary is becoming more politically active. And I think there needs to be some kind of recall mechanism for them, possibly. I think they need to be more accountable. I think this case actually highlights it very well.
So should they be sacked or not?
Well, I think with the case, this particular case, we have an instance here where the Lord Chief Justice is a committed Europhile who I think founded the European Law Network, which is committed to European legal integration. So I think perhaps there is a case. It's a conflict of interest. Well, I don't see why they shouldn't be accountable to a select committee, the select committee in Parliament. Perhaps we need to look at giving the Justice Select Committee.
Can't sack anybody.
Well, that's again another thing I think that I want to campaign for as UKIP leader. Select committees should have a little bit more teeth in Parliament.
You are aware that sacking judges whose rulings you disagree with is what they do in banana republics and dictatorships like Egypt. Sisi, he didn't like what the judges did, so he just got rid of the judges.
Of course. And
is that really a route you want to go down?
Of course it isn't. And it's absolutely...
Well, that's what you're talking about.
No, it's absolutely not the route I'm going down to, Andrew. And I would be the first, actually, to say I certainly don't want a situation in England like we have in America, where we have elected judges, for instance.
My question... Well, but the major judges in America are not elected. The Supreme Court is appointed and the courts of appeal on the federal circuit are appointed as well. But you've said that MPs should have the right to sack judges. That's what you said, thereby breaking a cardinal principle of our Constitution and of the American Constitution, that there's a separation of judiciary and the legislature.
Absolutely.
Is that really what you want to do?
This is where the line is being crossed. We are seeing increasing cases of judicial review where judges are allowing pressure groups and campaigners to bring cases for judicial review and then making rulings which would not stand up to scrutiny at the ballot box.
But Parliament can overturn judicial review with an act of Parliament. If it doesn't like a judicial review from the judges, Parliament can amend the legislation, which makes the judicial review null and void. Parliament on that is sovereign, but it doesn't fire the judges.
But do you think then that judges should be accountable to no one? That's the question, isn't it? And that's the situation that we have at the moment.
The point of an independent judiciary is that they're independent. That once they are appointed, like our Supreme Court judges, yes, they have the freedom to rule as they see fit under the law.
But
that's how it works here, it's how it works in Germany, it's how it works in France, it's how it works in America.
But if it can be seen that their rulings are actually, they're acting ultra vires in trying to make the law as opposed to actually enact the law, what do we do about them then? I think there needs to be a mechanism in place to keep that judicial activism in
keep them in a short leash?
Yes.
All right. Peter Whittle, one of your rivals, has withdrawn, endorsed Paul Nuttall. He's the bookie's favourite. Are you going to stand aside for Mr Nuttall too?
Absolutely not. I think I've got a very different skill set to Paul. I think I've got a very different approach. And I think my strength is that I can broaden the appeal of the party still further. So, no, I've been... members have wanted me to stand in a leadership race for quite some time. Since June, I wasn't able to stand in the first one. And no, absolutely not. I have a duty to stand. I think UKIP members want to see a good, fair, clean contest, and that's what it will be. And I think now we have have
that
two
would be a
candidates.
change for a
Now we
start,
have
if
two
it's good and
candidates
clean.
who I think are the two candidates that people want to choose between.
So you think it's down to you and Paul Nuttall?
Absolutely.
Nigel Farage doesn't think you're fit to be leader of UKIP. Do you think that you can win against someone who is, in a sense, the father of the party?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think our members know it's time to move on. Nigel himself has been saying for quite some time he wants to get his life back, and he's got that opportunity now.
He also says, I won't be voting for her, as in you.
Yeah, well, I very much hope that he will still play a role in the party as an elder statesman. I value his expertise and what he can bring to the party and what he has done. No, we're the same age, actually.
Well, there you go.
Enough.
So how
no,
could
he's
be an elder
definitely not that old.
statesman?
I meant in terms of presence,
I understand.
Sam. You know what I mean.
You've accused UKIP of having, quote, a hard right image.
No.
You told the BBC, a more toxic image than we should have had. Is Paul Nuttall part of that hard right image?
No, absolutely not. No, he isn't. I think what I was talking in the context of one candidate who's actually dropped out. My concern is that UKIP needs to broaden its appeal. We've had all kinds of smears chucked at us by the press, by our opponents, that have been grossly unfair. And I think I'm the best person to be able to try and move us on beyond that, to have a friendly face, to slightly change the tone of the party, to have those same tough, radical messages on immigration, on integration, on the European Union, and that's still, I think, got to be clearly our number one campaign to continue to try and get us out the EU in the face of this establishment onslaught trying to keep us in.
Paul Nuttall, you've said it's now down to a two-horse race in effect. We'll see if that's true, but that's what you said. He was deputy leader for 6 years. He was party chair for 2 years before that, whereas 3 years ago you were a Tory councillor. Isn't Paul Nuttall much more clearly the heir to Farage?
Well, it's not about the heir to Farage, is it? It's about who is going to do the best job to move our party on towards 2020 general election, but also to be able to get councillors into place to take control of councils.
But he would
up
do
and down
well
the
in
country.
the north. You're a lady of the home counties.
No, I was born in the West Midlands, Andrew. I went to university in London. I've worked all over the United Kingdom.
But your demeanour is that of the home counties, whereas Paul Nuttall is a. Am I still allowed to say Scouser? Could you say a Scouser?
I don't think Paul would mind. So
right.
I think
Okay. Well, he's from Merseyside. Got a Merseyside accent. Speaks to working class vote, which I would suggest in the north, disillusioned Labour, maybe even more disillusioned with this High Court ruling. That is where the low-hanging fruit is for you now.
Andrew, I have spent a lifetime in public service, not just in politics, but in the not-for-profit charity sector as well.
But partly
and
as a Tory.
I can tell you that people who need help, who need support, who need to get something done, don't care about what you look like or what you sound like. They care about what you do for them. And my record, there is nothing except that I am a doer and I get things done.
One of the things that you told The Guardian, may even have been you, was that if we had to introduce tariffs into our trade, which of course gives revenue to the government, tariffs on imports coming into this country, that you can put it in a pot to give back to British business. Are you aware of what Article 3 of the World Trade Organization says?
I have had conflicting messages about this. So I have asked actually our policy team to look into this and to see what can be done. And that's really all I can say because I've asked them to report back.
Well, I can tell you right now that Article 3 makes that illegal. You cannot use tariffs to subsidise businesses that have been facing tariffs.
OK, well, if that's what the policy team comes back to me and says, that's what the policy team comes back and says. And so we drop the idea. You know, if I make a mistake, I put my hand up to it, Andrew. I don't try and plough on regardless.
No,
like
that's
some of
fair
these
enough.
MPs
That's
who are
fair enough.
trying to overturn the will of the people for their own
My
ends.
invoice will follow.
I hope it's not too big.
What do you make of this race?
Well, I think UKIP, on the one hand, have some big opportunities and on the other hand are in a real mess. I mean, actually, none of the leadership contenders who are still in this are as worrying as, you know, some of the people and some of the things that we were hearing about beforehand. And, you know, Suzanne, in her credit, she wrote the 2015 manifesto, which some people would say Theresa May has picked up quite a lot of and has actually attracted quite a lot of UKIP supporters. But clearly, you know, as you say, Paul Nuttall is a certain figure, and I think there are huge opportunities across the north, particularly if it looks as if the will of the people is trying
if
to
there's
be
a battle over the court
Yeah.
versus people, or people versus parliament, people versus
betrayal idea
peers,
that Nigel
and so on.
Farage is talking about.
I think UKIP has done a very good job of smearing itself, to be fair. Forget what the press.
What do you think about the leadership?
I think the leadership, basically, if you put the two of them together, Paul Nuttall or Suzanne together, they have a perfect chance to come in and take votes off Labour. I mean, Michael Duggar in Barnsley, widely respected Labour MP.
No, but which one would have the better chance? You said put the two of them together. Which one
It's
would
not
have
for
the
me
better?
to say. I think I think whoever wins out of Paul Nuttall or Susan Evans, the other one must come behind them. And,
Well, that's
because at the moment, Michael Douglas was saying Barnsley, UKIP at the last election got 10,000 votes in their constituency. They never leafleted. No one ever knew who was standing for them. That is the power they have in the north.
Well, that's an interesting point there, that regardless of who wins, what he's saying is that you might be quite a formidable double act.
I think we would be.
So would you be happy to serve as deputy, Mr. Nuttall, or if you win, would you ask Mr. Nuttall to be your deputy?
If I win, I would be more than happy for Paul to be my deputy. If he'd accept that position, I'd be delighted. And I would accept whatever position he offers me and his team if he wins. Paul and I work very well together. And I think you've hit the nail on the head,
There
Steve.
you
Together
go.
we will be
Well,
a very dynamic team,
it's not
whichever
often-
one of us wins.
It's not often we do that on this programme, so I think we'll move on before it
invoice
starts to decline. There we go. You heard it first on the Daily Politics. Suzanne Evans, thank you very much.